$337 million. That is the worldwide box office gross of Mandalorian and Grogu, the movie. And that sounds like a solid gross when you think about it. After all, it's only a $165 million budget. Even with marketing factored in, this film probably made somewhat of a profit. But when you put that into perspective, Guardians of the Galaxy, the first one, 2016 movie, made more money than that. Yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy made around $800 million. Then you look at Ant-Man the Wasp, that made, I think it was about $600 million. And then you have Thor Dark World, which made about $400 million. All of these movies did better than the latest Star Wars movie. The Star Wars movie that has not come out again since 2019, within the last 7 years. That's terrible. That's catastrophically terrible for a franchise like Star Wars, which used to be the biggest film franchise in basically history, especially the biggest nerd type franchise out there. Every single movie they came out with was going to make $1 billion, and most of them did before franchise fatigue finally set in. And it's not as if the reviews for the movie Mandalorian and Grogu really saved it. The reviews always called this movie basically mid. So you have a mid movie that made barely any money when it comes down to it. And this is Dave Filoni's first major project without the supervision of Kathleen Kennedy. This is a disaster that just set. And it's caused certain people to start saying that maybe Dave Filoni wasn't the right guy for the job. Maybe they chose wrong. Maybe they should have chose Tony Gilroy. Tony Gilroy, the writer and creator of Andor, the writer of Rogue One. That guy seems to know what he's doing. Maybe he should be the one who controls the entire universe. And as a massive Andor fan myself, this news should have immediately made me kind of happy. This idea should make me happy. You say, hey, yeah, you're right. Tony Gilroy is a great writer. He should be the one in charge. This perfectly makes sense. But no. In fact, the idea filled me with something akin to dread. Because Tony Gilroy and his show, Andor, as good of a show as it is, a masterpiece is what I would call it. It never felt right. It didn't really feel like Star Wars. You see, Andor's biggest strengths are, in fact, its greatest weaknesses. Because when you actually look at the way that Andor makes things good, the reason why people really love it is because of how dark it is, how gritty it is, how lived in the world feels, how realistic it is. It is the realism that makes it interesting, that makes it good in the first place. It is that hyper-realism idea. And of course, you have the same idea from Mandalorian. Mandalorian is a very hyper-real idea. They even go further, being one step closer with Baby Yoda and the Force and stuff like that. But it still feels really realistic. The world really feels still lived in. When you look at the way that the battles are fought, when you look at the blaster bolts and the blaster fights, they feel more realistic. They feel more dangerous. They feel more kinetic. And that's a really cool element to have. Don't get me wrong, I definitely love those elements. That's what makes the show so good at their very peak, at their best. That said, that is also the main problem, because when you actually break down what these shows are doing, they are demystifying Star Wars. You see, they completely take out the mystical aspects that make Star Wars Star Wars. Without the mystical aspects, specifically the Force, Star Wars is nothing more than just another sci-fi movie, another sci-fi franchise, another sci-fi property. Which again, that means you're destroying the soul, which again, it's kind of ironic when you think about the soul as something that's ethereal, something that is in of itself kind of, immaterial. It is spiritual, and by removing the spiritual aspect of this show, you'd be taking away Star Wars soul. Irony is certainly there, but yes, that's one of the major aspects of Star Wars, the Force, the epic battle between the light and the dark, between the good and the bad, between the darkness, as I said before, and the light, the Jedi and the Sith. That's a huge deal. That's what Star Wars is originally based around. George Lucas, when he made the Force, talked about how he made the Force off of all the different real world religions. Not all of them, of course. He took several of the most major and huge religions and the ideas behind them and tried to make the Force some type of amalgamation of these different religions in order to give the Force itself a spiritual but almost universal human spiritual feel to it. And it did work. People loved the Force. People loved the idea of the Star Wars map itself. That's why the Jedi and the Sith were the major things. I remember back in my youth, when I was a kid, out there, 10 years old, 9 years old, 8 years old, playing with the kids in the neighborhood and whatnot, playing with my friends. What you would see is this idea of, when we played Star Wars, we grabbed lightsabers. We didn't grab any blasters for the most part. We did use blasters every now and then. We used Nerf guns, but the main thing we liked doing was taking lightsabers, because in that case, you were a knight. If you were a Jedi Knight or you were a Sith, warrior. The idea of it was very clear. And that's what made Star Wars Star Wars. If you just talk about blasters, any sci-fi can have blasters, but only Star Wars has lightsabers. Only Star Wars has the Force, has the battle between the good and the evil, the Sith and the Jedi. Only Star Wars has that idea. And it's that makes it different. As Obi-Wan said, the lightsaber is a weapon of a more civilized age. And that's one of the core parts of Star Wars in general. When you look at the way that Tony Gilroy did make the Rogue One and did Andor, look at the way that Dave Filoni did with Mandalorian, they tried to demystify Star Wars significantly, only adding the very smallest bit of mysticism and ethereal and spiritual nature in order simply to satisfy the fans. But again, when you look at actual Star Wars, that is the core of the story. Trying the core to the periphery, it's fine for a one-off story on the side, but it's not fine for the direction of your universe in of itself. I think that's the problem. Star Wars has been trying for so long to get away from the Jedi and the Sith, to either turn the Jedi into bad people and the Sith into some sort of, understanding the Force, or simply ignoring the entire idea of the darkness and the light, or in some cases, like we saw with Rey, simply destroying those ideas and reconstructing them in this weird, awful, strange way. They can't stop themselves from subverting those expectations. They can't stop themselves from either ignoring them or from destroying them. And that's the main problem that's killing Star Wars when you think about it. If they were to just focus back again on the Jedi and the Sith, their battle. Let Mandalorian, his thing, be the thing on the side that happens off on the side. Let Andor and his thing happen off on the side. Let that be the underground, the undercurrent. But never make that the main show. That's what essentially is the idea that, again, why Tony Gilroy, maybe he would understand that he was in charge, but this is the reason why I would be hesitant to put him in charge. The reason why I'm very critical of Dave Filoni. The reason why I don't like Kathleen Kennedy, because all these people refuse to actually deal with the Force, deal with what Star Wars actually is. And that is essentially why, even though Tony Gilroy did a great job, even though Andor was a great show, that's why Andor, Mandalorian, and all this new Star Wars doesn't actually feel like Star Wars.